And also, I am going to manage the participants. Bye-bye. I will open it back up again at the end. But right now, I'm going to mute everybody. Otherwise, we listen to all kinds of weird noises in the background. Because I've been doing these now for a couple of years. So sayonara until the end of the talk.
Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, come on. All right. Okay, can you guys all hear me? Okay, all right, great. We're going to start, as we always do, the Tibetan Buddhist Center. We're going to start with the refuge prayer. For those of you who have their prayer books, we are going to be looking at page number 32, which is one particular sadhana. A sadhana is a series of spiritual practices you do to actually train your mind. So we're working page 32, and instead of the traditional refuge prayer that we always chanted at the Tibetan Buddhist Center when I used to be going there regularly, that was a couple of years ago, we're going to be doing the version that's part of the Padmasambhava Guru Yoga. All right? Obviously, you guys can recite it to yourself. I'm going to recite it, the refuge prayer. It's important to read it because it has a particular slant to it, a particular way of invoking. It's the same prayer as the very one that we normally do at the beginning of our prayer book, but it's particularly pertinent to this three kayas, to this Padmasambhava stuff, to this particular set of topics we're going to be discussing today. So this is the refuge prayer from the Padmasambhava Guru Yoga. Myself and all sentient beings, as boundless as space, take refuge in the precious Lama, inseparable from the Buddha. In all Buddhas, Dharma, and Sangha, we take refuge. In the gatherings of Lamas, Yidams, and Dakinis, we take refuge. In the clear light of Sunyata and Dharmakaya, inseparable from my mind, I take refuge. Very different than the refuge prayer at the beginning. And in fact, it might be an introduction, a way to introduce ourselves to the depths of this prayer, the three kaya prayer. Hi, Elazar. First of all, a set of prayers devoted to somebody named Padmasambhava, and a set of prayers what they call Guru Yoga. So who or what is Padmasambhava? Very important. Remember, the prayer of the three kayas is embedded in a series of prayers. Apparently, Losang took this prayer to the three kayas and edited it and made it a little bit more accessible for we Americans, because I've looked online and there's many much more flowery, much more symbolic, much more Tibetan versions of the prayer to the three kayas. In a moment, we're going to talk about what the heck is a kaya. All right, but right now, who is Padmasambhava? Now, right now, I'm going to satisfy all of our discursive intellects. All of us who have been doing Buddhism for a while know that term, discursive intellect. And I had my own understanding of it, but I decided to look it up today. It means two things. The discursive intellect is a wandering mind, which everybody, all of us who have been meditating know what the wandering mind is. We're thinking about one thing. A minute later, we're thinking about something else. A minute later, we're thinking about something else. It goes on and on and on, endlessly, for this life and subsequent lives. You guys have all been told that our subsequent lives are largely conditioned by the state of mind that we're in when we pass over. You got to think about that. Buddhism is always concerned with passing over into the other state, the bardo, what happens when we die. And the storyline, which is continuing, generates further and further and further states. That's samsara. Hello, Marian. So this whole prayer, first of all, we'll talk about kayas, but who or what is Padmasambhava? So I'm going to address your discursive intellect. The first I said is it has to do with a wandering mind. The other thing apparently it has to do with it's an analytical mind. We are always trying to do, well, if this, then this, then this. The Buddhists love logic and they love the intellect. Nothing wrong with that. Our problem as sentient, deluded beings is we start with faulty premises. We start with mistaken beginnings and we try to reason from that. In fact, before I tell you read about Padmasambhava, the reason we're doing all of this, including all of this Buddhist practice, is because we've got three fundamental problems. The first is our discursive minds. We can't make the thing focus, where it's always wandering, usually about stuff that we particularly didn't care about, but we find ourselves thinking about it. My favorite time to experience my discursive mind is at 2 or 3 in the morning when I wake up. Not from worry, but I just wake up. The mind is usually going like crazy because it's close to the dream state. That's our one problem. We cannot focus the mind. We have a discursive intellect. The other thing is we're completely subject to waves of our emotional states. We're good 1 minute, 5 or 10 minutes later, we're a little moody, then we get depressed, then we're frightened, then we're upset, then we're happy, but they constantly change, and they're largely out of our control. They're actually based, as we quickly find out, on our habitual patterns, our samskaric body, our makeup. We're out of control. What are we going to do? All right. The third big problem we all have is we don't know what's going on. It's called mistaken views. You know, the Buddhists tell us that our root problem, our root klesha, our root disturbance is ignorance. We don't know what's going on. We're confused. So when we're doing our sadhana, we are invoking, help, I need help. Padmasambhava, whatever, whoever you are, I need some help. That's what we're doing. But who are we invoking? So here, too, all of our discursive intellect is right from Wikipedia. Who the heck is Padmasambhava? Padmasambhava, Padma means lotus, Sambhava means born. So it's an AKA, the lotus-born one. And there is gigantic mythologies around Padmasambhava. And you're welcome to get into it if you wish. The tiny child, shining blue, born in a lotus in the middle of a turquoise lake, you know, go for it. That's what you like. But anyway, his nickname is the lotus-born one. He supposedly was born like a divine child from the heart of a great lotus in the middle of a lake. He's also known as Guru Rinpoche, or precious guru. Rinpoche means precious jewel. He was an 18th century Buddhist master from India. He was an India Mahasiddha, which means great, great master. Although there was a historical Padmasambhava, so we're told, little is known of him, apart from helping the construction of the first Buddhist monastery in Tibet at Samye, at the bequest of the first a king of Tibet, invited him in to try to teach Buddhism, to help civilize all these crazy Tibetans. And shortly thereafter, he left Tibet because basically there was so much trouble dealing with all the politics. He just said, screw it, I'm going back to India. A number of legends have grown around Padmasambhava's life and deeds, and he is widely venerated as a second Buddha by the adherents of Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, and the Himalayan states of India and elsewhere. By the way, you know, there's 4 main schools of Buddhism. Padmasambhava is considered the godfather, the grandfather of Nyingma, or what they call the ancient ones in Tibet. In Tibetan Buddhism, he's a character of a genre of literature called terma. It's not a genre of literature. It means inspired teachings. Great masters of Tibetan Buddhism would go into visionary states and they would actually feel the presence of these terma, or they would find them mysteriously hidden, sometimes mystically in the landscape, because this gets deep into wonderful, for us, it's either you love it or it's just woo-woo. But anyway, they find hidden teachings. These are called terma. They're revealed teachings. We'll get to from whom, but they appear to Okay, they were an emanation of Amitabha, which is said to appear to Tirthans. Tirthans are the visionary extreme yogis who developed paranormal abilities, and they would feel or hear or see these karma, these revealed teachings in encounters, and it was I'm getting all up here, in visionary encounters and as a focus of guru yoga practice, particularly in the Rime schools. The Nyingma school considers Padmasambhava to be a founder of the tradition. Now, this practice, the 4 Kayas, one of its functions, it's a revealed teaching. One of its functions is to bring us closer to our true state of mind, our true state of awareness, and in fact become a kind of visionary teaching in itself, a revealed teaching in itself, for us personally, which gets to the fact of what a guru is. Okay? When they say in our refuge prayer, the Padmasambhava refuge prayer that we read at the beginning, they say, I take refuge in the precious Lama, inseparable from the Buddha. What is the precious Lama? Lama, it means basically a yogi or an advanced monk, somebody very advanced in spiritual practice, and basically someone who for you becomes a guru. And what is a guru? A guru, the root for guru comes from darkness to light, or dark light. And a guru sometimes is an actual person. Sometimes it can be a semi-divine figure like Chenrezig or Amitabha or even Tara. Sometimes it's actually a scriptural text. The way I'm going to define it for you right now is, what is a guru? It's whatever it is that in your mind stream helps clarify your deluded passions, clarifies, concentrates the mind, purifies the emotional states, and awakens genuine spiritual insight in you. It just happens. Sometimes we call it grace, but we call it actually, it's the grace of the guru. It's a little bit of like a spiritual mystery. It's not necessary. Sometimes it's an actual person. In fact, I think it's very powerful if it's an actual person. Hence, that's why they, instead of it just calling it, Buddha, which is often considered like a state of enlightened mind, they make it into a particular figure, like Padmasambhava, a semi-legendary figure. So that's a little bit about who Padmasambhava is, both actually, which I don't think is very helpful to us. As a guru, he can be very helpful to us. If he becomes, or it becomes, a guru within your mind stream, within your life, it can become very powerful for you. You can't, just between you and me, you can't really achieve deep spiritual knowledge by whatever you think yourself is, because you don't know what you are. It has to come from the guru. You can call it some deep aspect of yourself, but not your ordinary limited self. A completely different experience of what and who you are. That's what I want to create. If that happens to you a little bit in this course, thank you, Guru Rinpoche. That's my intention. I'm not the least bit. Information is not going to do it for you. Experience is going to do it for you. You all know that because all you guys are experienced practitioners. So the next thing is we deal with this thing called the prayer of the 3 Kayas, which I think is an amazing teaching on how to experience who you really are, what you really are, not what you think you are. You guys are good practicing Buddhists. You know that we delude ourselves. We're not necessarily our social self. That's a role that we play in this dream of life. We're not who we think our education. We're not even what we think we are in this life. We're something else. And this prayer of the Kayas, prayer to the 4 Kayas, is designed to arouse a direct experience of what you actually are, a direct experience. So you know it very well. Oh my God, I was dreaming. This is what it is. Okay, that's what it's going to be doing. So why do they call it, you guys who've actually looked at the prayer of the three kayas, I'm sure you all have read it many times, you'll notice something odd about it is, it's called the prayer of the three kayas. As I told you earlier, Losang edited this from I'm sure a much longer version of it, which I've looked at online. It doesn't seem to mention three kayas very much, at least obviously. But it's called the prayer of the three kayas. So what are the kayas? There's a quick version, which actually I got a little almost jokingly, just to give the mind something, a definition that the mind thinks it can fasten on to. But actually, I'm going to go straight to, I consider, a pretty profound introduction to the three kayas. And this is that teaching, which I sent to you guys. I found it online. I looked at a number of, rather than me trying to wing it, explain it, I wanted to find real experts who had good definitions of what these kayas are about. If you happen to have this downloaded and in front of you, that's great. I'm going to read it. And I hope that this is not going to, we got 4:30 to 5:30 till, I've got till 6. If it takes the rest of this class, it will be worth it because it gives you the background information that you need to know to go deep into this prayer of the three kayas. What do you need to know is how does your, I'm putting it in scare mark, self, how does that work? How does your mind work? Okay. All right. In the West, because of Freud, we have a tripartite view of human nature. Freud came up with it, and I know they discredited Freud long ago, but we still have a vague sense that there's whatever we are consciously, the public self. We know that we're driven by instinctual desires and suppressed memories and what Freud called suppressed trauma. And we know that has something to do with the unconscious. Somehow we're not aware of all this stuff, but it's still influencing us, okay? And the other thing is we're vaguely aware that in Freud's model of something he called the superconscious, what I'll call is the conditioning, the social conditioning, okay? He calls it this, most of us at this point, I hope, find it hard to go through a red light. We're just very conditioned, like, don't do that. And that might be loosely what part of, in the psychology they'll call the superego, okay, conditioned self. I think the Buddhists have a much more profound notion of mind. And of course, nowadays we have a very profound, much more profound notion of mind. To say one more thing about that, I think contemporary psychology, most psychologists, Marion's down there, but assume that the brain, if I hear some discussion of consciousness now by a materialist, they'll start, well, there's the hypothalamus, there's the limbic system, there's the forebrain, there's the cerebellum. In fact, they've even tracked where different things in meditation, where they seem to light up the brain. The discussion in contemporary consciousness circles is what they call the hard problem of consciousness. And I'm bringing this up before I bring the three kayas, because this is our Western, that I understand, our Western notion of what the heck the mind is. The hard problem of consciousness is this. If you accept the materialist, the standard scientific view of the way the world is, what's up here is a whole soup of neurons and dendrites and electrical impulses and interactions between the brain that they can register and they measure, okay. And they assume consciousness, what we are, arises out of the chemical soup of the brain. And they would always assume, they'd say, well, your brain, it has a certain part, a fluctuating kind of awareness of its surroundings with a whole bunch of suppressed memories, impulses, instincts, all that kind of stuff, okay? So that's a Western model that I think most of us are perfectly familiar with. A different model of consciousness entirely is what the Tibetans called the three kayas. This was not a part of the first stage of Buddhism. This is part of the Vajrayana, I think. I don't even think it's a Mahayana teaching. No, it is a Mahayana teaching. but it was evolved after centuries of real deep insight into what's going on in meditation and outside of meditation. So this is Khenchen Palden Sherab Rinpoche and Khenpo, I can't pronounce it, Swang Dongyal Rinpoche. Probably Floyd would be able to know who these people are better. It's pretty sophisticated, and I'm going to go through it. So what are the three kayas? Reality can be understood in terms of three modes of existence, which are called the three kayas, three modes of existence. Penetrating the meaning of these kayas helps one understand not only one's own nature, but the nature of reality itself. And this teaching was given in 1989. So it says, the three kayas are actually aspects of enlightened being. Remember, I'll repeat that. The three kayas are aspects, they're descriptions of enlightened being. They are the Buddha, not the actual historical Buddha, but the Buddha is enlightened awareness. They are the Buddha reflected in three different ways in order to help sentient beings. What does it mean to help sentient beings? To help us understand what the heck is going on. The meaning of the Sanskrit Buddha is awakened or fully realized one. Forget historical Buddha. The Buddha is you, as if you were fully awakened or fully realized. What is realized? The original nature is realized perfectly as it is. Question, what is the original nature? The original nature is realized perfectly as it is, with nothing changed or exaggerated, but as it is at both the relative and the absolute levels, or as relative and absolute truth. One who is awake to this understanding is a Buddha. The realization involves the complete transcendence of obscurations. That means your emotional troubles, your inability to focus, and your erroneous views of reality. This realization involves the complete transcendence of obscurations. We haven't fully awakened to our true nature because of these obscurations. Whereas Buddha Sakyamuni realized the original nature perfectly because he was purified of obscurations. Note, you are Buddha. You are fully enlightened with obscurations. Sentient beings are Buddhas with obscurations. That's the definition of a sentient being. Absolutely perfect, except muddied. Otherwise, perfect. Remember that. Do you know what relative and absolute truth is? Absolute truth is the nature of absolutely the way things are. Relative truth is the way the world appears to a sentient being. A being that is a Buddha with obscuration experiences reality as something separate to itself and something that has to be dealt with. That is our state of illusory existence, relative reality. Absolute reality is Buddha itself, or how the Buddha experiences. The word Buddha refers to all realized beings, all of us. It's not only one particular enlightened being that it's known as a Buddha. Those who've realized their true natures in the past are also known as Buddhas. And those who realize it now may be called Buddhas. And those who come to this realization in the future will be known as Buddhas. The Buddha is a general term, which doesn't merely refer to a single individual, but to every realized being. The whole purpose of enlightened beings is to benefit sentient beings. That's we beings that are confused. In order to do this, they appear in many different forms or bodies. The principal emanations are known as the three kayas. Buddha shows up in different forms. Enlightened awareness shows up in different forms. Okay, here's what they are. The Dharmakaya, the Shambhogya-kaya, and the Nirmanakaya. That's enlightened awareness, shows up in these three forms. It's us without our obscurations. There are even 4 or 5 kayas divided further to qualify other manifestations of enlightened being, but it's all one Buddha. Kaya is just a Sanskrit word that means body, in the sense of many qualities being gathered together, joined and unified as one. You got that? It's just a whole bunch of characteristics that are lumped under the label of Nirmanakaya or Shambhogiakaya. Just as we like to think of a me living right behind my eyes in this body. But guess what? I just ate some toast before this thing all started. Okay? So is the toast in my tummy still me? What about when part of that toast gets assimilated into glucose and gets absorbed in my cells? Is it toast or me? When does it become me? And I ate that toast. Sooner or later, some of it's going to get pooped out. Is the poop still me? Is the poop in my bowels? Is that still me? What's me and what's not me? I'm a group of arbitrary characteristics that something in me, my deluded state, has just called me. What is my body? There's no real difference between my body and anything else going on. It's just an arbitrary designation of characteristics. Okay? Notion, this is to get you into the body as an assemblage of characteristics, of stuff. He's saying here, there's all these qualities to enlightened consciousness. They're just assembled into 3 names. Okay? Enlightened consciousness is one. Okay. Kaya here refers to the embodiments of, here's characteristics of enlightened awareness. Loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, and skillful means, which appear in the world to help sentient beings. What are skillful means? It means that stuff, without even you willing it or knowing why, it's helping the planet. By the way, all of you people who are regular spiritual practitioners, every time you sit down and you make a refuge prayer, you are influencing and bettering the planet. Just by doing that, just by spiritual practice, just by thinking about the Buddha, you are helping. That skillful means you're helping the world. Here's a description then of Dharmakaya. The Sanskrit word dharma, we tend to think of it means spiritual teachings. This is interesting. The Sanskrit word dharma just means phenomenon. Okay? It means both external and internal, subjective and objective. Okay? The dharma of going to the supermarket. The dharma of the recitation of a certain prayer. It's a structured set of activities. It's a coherent set of activities. The Sanskrit word dharma means phenomenon, both external and internal, subjective and objective. The Dharmakaya refers to the primordial or the true nature of phenomenon, which is beyond conception or dualistic thought. It's not partial. It does not discriminate. It is the great equanimity. This embodiment of wisdom is known as the Dharmakaya. Okay, now just go on. We're all aware of a great variety of phenomena. There are many things that we know and feel. However, they can all be summarized into 2 categories: subjective phenomenon and objective phenomenon, inner and outer. That's a fundamental truth of we as sentient beings. Both develop through the interaction of the elements. Explain that. If we look carefully at the elements, each of them are aggregations of many subunits. Every element is composed of individual atoms, and these consist of many subatomic particles bound together as the atomic structure of that element. None of these particles are independent things. Each is dependent upon others for existence. If we look deeply and carefully into any single element, meaning anything that's going on, we will find our investigations in terms of subject, looking at it, and object, phenomenon, that ultimately dissolves in the intuition of great emptiness. Well, we can't go into it, but interdependent causation. when you see, as the Buddha did, that everything arises as a result of causes and conditions and is inseparable from the causes and conditions, which constantly change and phenomenon constantly change. There's no such thing as a fixed entity. Anything compounded or made out of parts is subject to change and dissolution. Again, this is all background for getting into this wonderful poem, the Prayer to the Three Kayas. This is the ultimate examination we can make. To go further is beyond our dualistic conceptions. In other words, our ordinary state of mind, we aren't going to get this absolute reality. Understand the real nature of the external world to be no other than the great emptiness. If we look at subjective phenomena, we find they are similar to the elements. Mind can be conceptually divided into 8 categories or many more, but they are all function as a single aggregate. If we search for where our present thought comes from, we won't find an exact source. If we look to where it goes, we can't find its destination. We can't even find the spot where it exists. In this way, we can see that the mind, the subject, is arising in great emptiness, inexpressible by the mundane conceptions or speech. Any of us who've meditated have realized that there's a thought, there's another thought, there's spaces between the thoughts, a feeling or state arises. You know, this is called the fourfold mindfulness practice in beginning meditation. You observe the constantly shifting states of our feelings, our perceptions, our thoughts, our emotions. All of them come out of nowhere and they go to nowhere. You don't know why they arise, and then they disappear. Out of that is the subjective sense of time. He's talking about truly to understand the real nature of what's going on. You can't conceptualize it for reasons that we'll get into when we go into the 4 kayas. Both the internal and the external are based in one primordial nature. Outer or inner, there is no distinction. All are one. Emptiness, beyond dualistic thought, beyond existence and non-existence, both and neither. It goes far beyond the conventional notions of emptiness or vacuity. It is not some thing to which we can cling. It is always there, never increasing or decreasing, but remaining as it was and how it will be all the time. Circumstances cannot change its primordial nature. Perfect realization of this nature is the realization of the Dharmakaya. What is he talking about? What is this absolute nature? What is this thing which never increases or decreases? In all the flux of existence, you know, because you're all meditators, you're nothing but change. There's nothing fixed in you. You eat that toast, it passes out of the body, you're an energy system. There's nothing fixed in you except for Buddha nature. It never changes. It's not a thing. Okay? I forgot how they phrased it. It's not something you can think of. It exists. And I've got news for you guys. You can experience it. In the old days, they called it the Buddha nature. The current term for it in the Advaita stuff that I listen to is awareness. But this is, what do we mean? What do we mean? Another bigger term for it is consciousness. A fancy $5 word for it is Satchitananda that I love from all my Advaita study right now. You can directly experience it. It is your Buddha nature. The $20 word for it is the Tathaka Garbha, your essential, your true nature. You can experience this. You are the Dharmakaya. Don't experience it. All you can experience is objects of consciousness with a feeling like, I am doing this and that. It's possible to experience the Dharmakaya. And that's what we're going to do with the prayer of the 3 kayas. It's an invocation. It's a way to experience your true nature. So, goes on. Forgive me to read it. This is a little tedious, and you should study it on your own. Now they're going to talk about another aspect of a picture of enlightened consciousness, something called the Shambhogya-Kaya, which is a little tougher to understand for some of us. Some of you Vajrayana students, pizza cake. The rest of us, a little tough to wrap your head on. The great emptiness is our primordial nature. The great emptiness is the Dharmakaya. Why is it called empty, by the way? They're called empty because there's nothing you can really get a grip on, even though there's stuff there. I always think of it as like electricity, a spark. Is that electricity? No. It's not a concept. It's not a thing. And yet it's everything. Okay, that sounds woo-woo, but the great emptiness is our primordial nature. This emptiness is not like a black hole or a state of nothingness. Emptiness, they're talking about right here. Emptiness is more like a state of fullness. By means of the primordial nature, this is important, everything arises without effort, without thought, spontaneously appearing with clarity. That is the sign of emptiness. If there were no emptiness or primordial truth, everything would be blocked. Nothing would move, nothing could develop, and nothing could manifest. This spontaneous radiance of unceasing clarity is the meaning of the Sanskrit term Shambhogya-Kaya. So, when we were talking about the Dharmakaya, we're just aware of like this, the beingness, the isness, I like that term, the isness of everything. Existence exists. But how does existence exist? It's not like you have this gook over here called isness, and then you have the world. The world is the way isness shows up. This unceasing clarity, that means that there's stuff. We can summarize by simply saying, what exists? Experience. In fact, for you philosophically minded, think about this tonight. Is there anything that exists that isn't experience? And you say, of course there is. I don't experience some distant star that I don't know anything about it. Yeah, you did. You just experienced it. You said, well, but I wasn't thinking about it a moment ago. So did it exist? Did it? It's one of the things we'll explore in the three Kayas. Just because you think you're unconscious of something, does it actually exist? We'll explore that later in the three Kayas. Right now, the Shambhogya-Kaya level, it's often considered the visionary level, but this Khenpo here very wisely defined it as the fact that everything is here. It's not really there. It's atoms and molecules. It's just energy exchange. It's actually collections of characteristics. It's collections of cause and conditions. It's really emptiness, but it appears luminously. Have you guys ever remarked on the weirdness that when you open your eyes in the morning, you know where you are? That people can do things like catch a baseball? How does that? You know, I turn my head and I see all this stuff, no effort. It's not like everything's blurry and that comes into focus. It just is there. Have you ever noticed that you sit there and you say, how do you feel about things? You instantly just look into yourself and somehow you know how you feel. What is that? Shambhogya-Kaya. That's the spontaneous clarity that just everything manifests magically. You didn't tell you what do you see? You see a cup with a tiger and a monkey on it. Did you have to work to do that? Did you have to look it up? No, you instantly knew. Shambhogya-Kaya. Sam means perfect, yoga means enjoyment, and Kaya roughly translated as body. Thus, the body of perfect enjoyment is the radiant wisdom aspect of our original nature. Wisdom in this sense is just like intelligence. You can do it. Like, what is this? You say cup. Well, that's wisdom. How'd you know that? You say, well, I learned it. No, you knew it, just didn't even think. You knew what it was. The Shambhogya-Kaya is displayed as the 5 wisdoms. The first of these is Dharma Dhatu wisdom, The second is known as mirror-like wisdom. The third is the wisdom of equality. The fourth is discriminating awareness wisdom. The fifth is known as the all-accomplishing wisdom. These 5 wisdoms are the clarity aspect of our true nature. What the heck do those things mean? They're qualities in the enlightened mind. Let's not even try to go there because we won't understand it. What we do understand is the way these 5 Buddha wisdoms come out in our ordinary lives. Okay? And they come out as passion, desiring things, trying to keep away things. They come out as our basic psychology. While we are in the world of samsara, as long as we're not realized, these wisdoms are known as the 8 consciousnesses. This is how they express itself through sentient beings. When you purify the obscurations, these 8 are transformed into the 5 wisdoms. In other words, this is the way sentient beings experience things. This model of the minds that we have, which when we grasp and really, really grasp what we really are, they're transformed into these transcendent wisdoms. Therefore, the nature of our present consciousness is based on these 5 wisdoms. Okay, and they're going to talk about the 8 consciousnesses. I decided to read this long thing to you guys because this is very important to understand what the prayer of the KAYAS is all about. Okay. I'm turning right now to the prayer of the 4 KAYAS. Yes, the prayer of the 3 KAYAS. I call it the 4 KAYAS because sometimes they have an extra one, which is all of them joined. Okay, it doesn't matter. The 8 consciousnesses. Now, this is very interesting. Well, it's very interesting. This model or breakout of consciousnesses is, I think, brilliant. And this is a traditional Buddhist way of describing what the mind is in our relative way. As conditioned, deluded human beings, how does the mind function? They say it functions as 8 aspects of awareness or consciousness. Expresses itself in 8 ways, which if purified, they would be the 5 Buddha wisdoms, but they're not purified. They're full of obscuration, so here's how they show up. Here we will name the 8 consciousnesses for people who don't know them. The first 5 are the common senses: eyes, ear, tongue, nose, and body consciousness. These 5 consciousnesses function through the organs to perceive the 5 external objects of sense. In themselves, these 5 are very partial and limited. The eye consciousness is only for form. It cannot taste or hear sounds or smell. Similarly, the ear is only for sounds, and it's not for seeing and tasting and so forth. So how, okay. They're called the non-conceptual sense consciousnesses. I think they're amazing. If we think about it, how do we know anything? How do we even function? We know that all sentient life forms, including jellyfish, they somehow sense, they have an experience of the environment outside and inside, like a jellyfish. You know, if it feels like it ate something bad, I think the jellyfish would react to it in some way. There would be some kind of response to it. So every sentient being has an experience of something inside and outside. Okay? The I consciousness is non-conceptual because it doesn't exist in time. It operates instantly, apparently. It's not just the retina taking in light information and turning into electricity. You know how it works. I won't go through the whole thing, but I think it's wild. It goes through the optic nerves and gets processed in the visual cortex of the brain. That's not seeing. Seeing is perception. The perception happens in the middle of the mind. Automatically, against your will. You didn't even know how. You saw in the screen, you saw me, there's something here. You see something. The mind will interpret that as a cup, but the eye sees it instantly. Not only that, but it doesn't think about it. It says cup. The mind may think about it. The mind call it cup, and then thinks, well, that's a cute cup. I like that cup. It's got a tiger and a monkey on it. I wonder where he got that cup. That's the story which evolves onto it. I won't go into the skandhas, but you guys are familiar how this operates. But at first, somehow in the mind, cup showed up, or rather a visual sensation showed up. Vision is a way that we know the world. Each one of the sense consciousnesses is how we absorb or dramatize or experience the world. It's actually 5 flavors of experience. To taste something, oh God, I just got a message. The internet connection is unstable. I hate that. To taste something is a miracle. What does it mean to actually taste? I suggest all of you meditate. We're told to do this. If you try to meditate on something like sight, you will not be able to disengage your mind from it until you're very advanced. If you can look at something without even noticing that it's an object, okay, you're pretty good. However, you can do better with sounds. It is possible to listen to sounds. Try it the next time you meditate. First, hearing a bird, or you hear cars, or you might hear, some distant sounds in the house. Instantly, your mind is saying, somebody wants something, car, bird. It is possible to hear sounds where you just hear them as raw data. There's a sound there, but the mind doesn't really identify what it is. Sometimes you can hear with unfamiliar sounds like screeches or something like that. It's a little easier yet if you try to do that with taste. You can actually taste something without the mind identifying it. Oh, you can just feel. And it's a very weird sensation because you're aware that this is how we experience the world. It's a consciousness. And if you think about it, you realize, well, this is kind of amazing. There's only 5 ways we do it. Eye, ear, nose, tongue. And I was thinking about feeling today. A lot of us think of feeling like the skin, but I feel the inside of my body, and you guys do too. Feeling is the most amorphous one. But another thing to know about the non-conceptual sense consciousnesses is they do not occur in time. Those of you who are paying attention will say, not true, Jeff. I can remember hearing a car. In fact, whenever I hear a car, it's because I have a memory trace of a car. And I say, absolutely. Something got heard. The sense of hearing occurred. The brain registered sound. Then is it the 6th or the mind? Let's see, how many? Eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. Okay, those are the 5 sense non-conceptual, no thinking sense consciousness. You pick up data, or data occurs, because you can, inside or outside. The mind is the 6th consciousness. And I want to read about, the mind is really interesting. Yeah, the 6th is known as mind consciousness. The human, here, I thought I'm watching the time. I think this is frickin' amazing. I wrote it backwards. Can any of you look at that as lines and not see a word? If you are advanced yogis, you might be able to look at that as lines. If I look at this a little bit, for a moment, I can actually see it as lines. Then dog comes back. The mind is incredibly powerful. And it's a little, they always talk about this, the 6 states here, the 5 sense consciousness and the mind, but the mind is big. I think here's another weird one. Here's what your mind does. Okay. Some of us see this. What is it? It's a square. Really? It's actually just graphite on a piece of paper. No, it's 4 dots that are in the form of square. Can you tell your mind not to see it as a square? Now that I've mentioned square, it's going to be very hard. The mind is just really powerful. The mind does, that's okay, I'm kind of riffing on this a little bit, but it's okay. The non-conceptual sense consciousness and then the mind. We meditators know there's 2 states of the mind. One is where the mind just tells you, it's very useful to help with. Thank God the mind just tells me that's a coffee cup. I'm looking around and a desire rises me. I want to have a little sip of coffee. And sense consciousness and touch consciousness. Oh, and then immediately the mind says a cup, and it has a story about the cup. Here's where the trouble starts. The cup has some coffee in it. Okay, I like the coffee. I want the coffee. I'm involved with the whole movie. The full-blown consciousness of coffee cup with coffee. The sadness when the coffee's gone. Okay? The delight when the coffee's there. Somehow the sense consciousness, non-conceptual, knows how heavy, and it knows whether there's coffee in it. If you guys ever realized that something in you is tracking how much liquid is in the cup when you take a sip? And if somebody fills a cup without you being aware of it, sometimes you'll spill it. The mind is amazing. More to say about that, because this is all these 8 consciousness. I want to read you the other consciousnesses. We just did the mind consciousness. All right. A closer look reveals that the mind has 2 sides. One, which we have called the 6th consciousness, or duality consciousness, is dealing with the business of past, present, and future. It's making decisions based on the information received from the first 5 consciousnesses. It is very neutral and rational. That's a coffee cup. Thank God my mind will tell me stuff like that. Otherwise, I can't drive, I can't do anything. The mind's amazing. By the way, my cats, 2 cats are sleeping over here, thank God. They have minds too, but they're dominated by cat patternings, cat conditionings. All right? They also have such a mind. All right? But what I don't think they have is, or maybe they do have this, is something called the 7th consciousness. It's the klesha consciousness. It's the part of us that makes all the trouble. It's the basically very emotional and gives rise to ego clinging. On the basis of ego clinging, ignorance, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and doubt develop. All this arises in that single aggregate we call mind. What that means is cup. Some practices of meditation, you practice this a lot. Just be non-attached. It's a cup. Don't hassle with it. Other people lift it up and say, I don't like monkeys and tigers on cups. Or you say, that's a really cute cup. I want a cup like that. And I think like that, if I were to drop this cup and it breaks, I think, oh, that was my favorite cup. This is nothing but atoms and molecules. But somehow a whole drama has ensued with the 6th and 7th consciousness, the mind which identified it, and then the 7th, the ego-afflicted consciousness. My cup, your cup, this cup I want, this cup I don't want. If I drop the cup, I've lost it. The drama of life ensues. Suddenly a whole movie erupts, which I would love to go into more. I've actually read that there's a strip of the mind which continually creates a motion of time. Something I saw once on the internet that I like very much. Oh my God. I like very much was they showed a scene of a little kid just walking along the street. Okay. The mind just identified kid on street. Then they played music. Really dramatic, dark music. Suddenly you got really worried about the kid. Oh my God, what's going to happen to that kid? The music was the subtext of the emotional clinging, the ego self, the 7th, the afflicted consciousness, the I consciousness, the story. Okay? Very important. With these 8 consciousness, did I talk about the 8th consciousness? Yes. All 7 of these minds are based on an 8th consciousness, which is known as Kungzi. I think it is in Tibetan, the ground mind. It's sometimes translated as the subconscious storehouse. This much Freud figured out. What's going on with us now is based on memory, suppressed memories, certain degrees instincts. In Sanskrit, it's called the alaya consciousness, seed-based consciousness. The nature of the 8 consciousness are positive or negative. It's neutral. Alaya retains every basic habit pattern of individuals. Everything is stored there, good karma, bad karma, and neutral karma. All kinds of habits and whatever actions we perform into our lifetimes are registered there. That's why it's called a storehouse. Alaya is a consciousness, but it's very subtle. Alaya is a big topic, and I've spent a long time looking into it, and I suggest you guys too. Is alaya personal or is it impersonal? I've heard it described both ways. It is a repository of experiences in seed form, bijas, okay? Little seeds, which given the right causes and conditions, flower up. We're walking down a street. A dog jumps out at us and we get frightened, okay? We have endless patterns buried deep in the repository of alaya consciousness, which flash into our mind as bad dog, be afraid, okay? Out of bija seed syllables. These are essential because otherwise, how would we know what we are? It provides all the patterns. It's actually, I got the great analogy. It's in your computer. When you open up your computer, it's just nothing but patterns of electrical energy on circuit boards. God knows how it works. But somehow it generates all these pictures and all this stuff. It retains all these memories, and yet it's in a little tiny hard drive. It's a good analogy. The reason I think they did it that way is because on some level, whoever designed all this junk understood how the mind operates. Alaya consciousness is a deeper, vaster set of patternings than simply what we call the unconscious in Western psychology. It's a very vast, what allows everything to manifest. As they said here, it's the repository of all karmic seeds, karmic actions. Allow this universe to unfold in front of us is a manifestation of alaya consciousness. It isn't us because guess what? What we think we are. Me as this middle-aged guy with a mustache sitting here tapping myself in the chest is all simply arising out of conceptual interpretations of non-conceptual sense experiences. It gets interpreted according to my karmas, okay? According to my conditioning and patternings, okay? One more statement about that because it all has to do with us, the prayer of the three kayas. All has to do with that. The Buddhists explain it this way. They say, wait, Sue, let's wait to the end. I know it's hard. If we start answering questions, I've got half an hour left. It's going to go forever. I'm sorry. So let me just keep going and we'll have questions at the end. Pray to God. The Buddhists teach is this coffee tastes bitter but nice to me if I were in a God state of consciousness. This is the, what do we call it? The five modes of existence. If I were in a God state of consciousness, it would taste the most delicious elixir in the world. Okay? If I were in the realm of the hungry ghost, I wouldn't be able to, I would be dying to sip this, to touch, oh, I want something, but whenever I taste it, I don't really like it. Oh God, I really want some good coffee. Some of we've all been there, hungry ghosts. They say that people in the hell realms will experience this coffee as scalding, disgusting, filthy, utterly nauseating stuff. Does this actually work? Yes. If you watch your emotional states, sometimes the world sucks, sometimes it's delightful. Okay, what we're aiming to do through the kayas and our meditation practice is to escape the whole trap of always being involved in these various interpretations based on the alaya seed consciousness. Okay. So what are we looking for? As I just started, they explain it in the last paragraph here, is when these 8 consciousnesses are transmuted, by the way, so just type it into that little chat line. If you can chat that in and I can read it, maybe I can answer it quickly on the fly. When these 8 consciousnesses are transmuted or transformed, they become the 5 wisdoms. When we become Buddhists and we're no longer subject to all of our negative karma and conditioning, they are simply like our sense consciousness, but radiant ways of knowing, radiant ways of experiencing. Okay? Hope that made sense. They become the 5 wisdoms. The 5 wisdoms are symbolized by the 5 dhyana Buddhas. You know, and okay, they are the radiant spectrum of clarity qualifying the Dharmakaya. The central Buddha of the Dharmakaya wisdom is the Vairochana. Now, I could go on with this, but I'm simply going to say this about Sambhogakaya. This was a good discussion of Sambhogakaya because they're explaining how we construct experience, how we construct the sense of self, how this world shows up. It's an excellent model. Okay, in fact, when I printed it out last night, I realized they got a little picture at the end. Well worth studying what they mean by the 8 consciousnesses. Then they bring up this notion that purified awareness, you will experience. Experience constructs itself through the 5 wisdom Buddhas. Technically, the Sambhogakaya level also refers to you advanced yogis who are deep into your Vajrayana practices. You will have visionary experiences. You will see pure visions of the world. When you look online about the Sambhogakaya, they say that the Buddhas, or very advanced yogis, well, here's a story that I once heard. Let me see if I get it right. When we look at an enlightened person or a Buddha, what do we see? We see a wonderful, wise person. What do they see when they look at us? They see Buddhas. Radiant, enlightened vision means that you see this, the world, excuse me, not the world, you don't see the world, you experience perfectly. You experience perfection. And it's described by the description of the 5 radiant wisdoms. All right, and it's not worth, read it about it if you want to online. It doesn't make a lot of sense until you're a very advanced practitioner, okay? And right now we don't need to know it for the prayer to the 3 Kayas, okay? But anyway, I'm just telling you, Sambhogakaya is often described as the visionary state, okay? When you mysteriously see the way things actually are in the absolute level of reality. So what is the Nirmanakaya? All Buddhas are emanations of one Buddha, consciousness. I've just called Buddha consciousness, and I mean big cosmic consciousness, not our ordinary deluded consciousness. The different levels or aspects or kayas of the Buddha, the bodies of the Buddha, exist only for the purpose of benefiting sentient beings. This is bodhicitta. It is the central mystery of Mahayana Buddhism, and you guys should think about that. What does it mean to benefit all beings? You know that the highest aspiration, the highest wish, we think, you know, we're here to save all sentient beings. We cannot save anything, really. Everything is part of the endless, shining clarity of existence. The way we benefit other beings is to completely realize our Buddha nature. One of my teachers says, what's the definition of Buddha? A being that is of infinite benefit. You do with it as you wish. The highest goal, the highest wish is to become a Buddha or be a Buddha. That's the only way you truly benefit the world. And all benefit of the world arises from enlightened awareness. All happiness and joy. The fact that air is here. It's all an aspect of enlightened awareness. All Buddhas are emanations of one Buddha. Each Buddha can appear in any of the 3 Kayas. This is very important. The Dharmakaya Buddhists, because the Nirmanakaya, technically, when you read about the definition, they mean an actual Buddha or enlightened entity showing up in front of you. But it's more than that. Okay. Each Buddha can appear as any one of the 3 Kayas. The Dharmakaya Buddhas, such as Samantabhadra, appear only to highly realized beings, such as 10th Bhumi Bodhisattvas, who can also receive teachings from the 5 Dhyana Buddhas. Okay? Beginning practitioners, or those with dualistic thoughts and conceptions, which include just about everybody, would have difficulty perceiving teachings from some Sambhogakaya or Dharmakaya Buddhas. In a nutshell, that means some of us, you look at a picture like I've got Green Torah back there, and you see her, you experience her. That's me in my enlightened awareness as pure compassion. The rest of us look at it, oh, I think it's pretty, I love Green Torah, and please make me fearless. Okay, that's deluded consciousness, that's aspirational Buddhism. Okay, and they say the 3rd Buddha is known as the Nirmanakaya Buddha. Nirmana is a Sanskrit term which means to manifest in form. not just in one style and form, but in all kinds of ways, in order to benefit all sentient beings, whether they're highly realized, beginners, or even just heavily obscure. The Nirmanakaya Buddha is for everybody. Okay, and they described supreme emanations, birth emanations, artisan emanations, and emanations of various things. I want to summarize this because I want to talk about some other stuff too. This is very interesting. Well, maybe not. The supreme emanation of the Nirmanakaya Buddha appears as a unique, special person, like the Sakyamuni Buddha or the Guru Padmasambhava. They come into this world. They have special kinds of bodies and speech and minds. They have 32 marks of this and that. They have special blue lights and all kinds of stuff. This is mythologized a little bit. Guess what? Some people actually experience this as part of their everyday reality. Or let's just say, no, it's real for some of us who are deeply advanced yogis. Or ordinary folks. I'm thinking about Christ manifesting to, well, no, even ordinary folks can have experiences of divine personages, okay, visions. They're talking about the Buddha. The second Nirmanakaya incarnates even in animal and non-visible realms, using different names and forms, male or female, as they are needed. There are many Janaka stories of the Buddha taking birth in animal forms, blah, 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 blah. They may or may not appear traditional way or wearing robes and all kinds, tulkus, blah, 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 blah. Okay. What they're trying to say is don't think of a Buddha as like this Hollywood version of the guy with the orange robes and emanating light and all that. It might show up like that for you, but saying when you are interacting with your guru, a human guru, or they go on here, I'm going to give it away. When you are looking at your Yidam deity, Green Sara, let's say she does it for you. She is the embodiment of absolute reality. She is the Dharmakaya expressing itself in this form as enlightened awareness, and it shows up as green Tara. She has been imbued with that energy. In other words, in your own mind stream. This is it. This raises your consciousness. Suddenly you feel very different. You might feel, anybody of us who've done serious sadhana with a Yidam deity or with your own guru, a person, the Dalai Lama, or someone that you've taken to be your personal guru. They are, for you, transcendent, transpersonal wisdom, ultimate wisdom. When you are with them, you can have extraordinary insights and have extraordinary experiences, which are unexplainable otherwise. Okay, I'm going to give you a little tip. When you have your guru, if you're lucky enough to have a guru, you can't just choose one. In a sense, it's chosen for you out of some deep level. Remember, we're not what we think we are. We aren't these ordinary, silly people who watch TV and have problems. We're actually divine beings pretending to be ordinary human beings with ordinary human problems. It's the whole subject of this talk. We're not what we think we are. We're something extraordinary, but we haven't experienced it yet. It's not real for us. That the Nirmanakaya Buddha can show up, he goes on in here, as a work of art. If you are, all of you, I think, who have been meditating for a while, let's say you're in a particularly exalted mood, your energy has been raised, your awareness energy has been raised. You've had a wonderful course. You're feeling, and the world looks wonderful to you, and it looks special. Somebody at the supermarket happens to say something, and suddenly you say, oh my God, it was like they said something cosmic. I hope all of you have had this experience. Or it might happen is you pick up a spiritual teaching that you've looked at many times before. Suddenly, one passage makes an incredible amount of sense to you. It's like, oh my God, I really get this now. How could I have not seen that before? At that moment, that's the Nirmanakaya Buddha. That is the guru manifested in that form at that moment and made it real for you. You can even say in that sense, Guru Rinpoche was there for you. And may you opened up your mind and you suddenly grasped something or saw something. All of you are aware that the more time you spend with this, the more time you spend in sadhana, the easier and the better it gets. We're still conditioned beings. It is an illusion to think that you're going to figure it and do it all yourself. This happens at some other level. Guru Rinpoche makes it happen at some other level, as mysterious that is. So I could read more of this, but I'm going to let you guys read it. Read more about and ponder what he means about the Nirmanakaya Buddha. Basically, it's not only just the Buddha showing up in a physical form, but it shows up in your life. See, the Sambhogakaya level is a little mysterious. That's visionary level. That's the sense levels. You know, it's something abstract. Nirmanakaya is divine energy or divine insight showing up now, right when you need it. Okay? Acts of grace, amazing things happening, an amazing spiritual experience you have. If you're a real advanced yogi, and I hope you are, a terrible thing happens for you. And something in you says, ultimately, this is for the good. I'm going to learn from this. Ultimately, this had to happen. It's okay. I'm okay with it. This is advanced spiritual teaching. You can turn a negative experience into a very powerful spiritual teaching. You are acting through the Nirmanakaya Buddha when you do that. Okay? A phrase I like is the kindest Buddha is the Buddha that appears in hell. That means we're in miserable shape, and suddenly we see, oh my God, this is purifying me of my attachments, my obscurations, my ignorance. This is purifying me. This is opening me up to compassion for others, for example. All right? It's not the circumstances, it's what you do with the circumstances. So this teaching, which is very complicated, I realize as I was reading it, it's really a whole course in itself. What is the structure of the mind? And a Buddhist model for it, the three kayas. Okay? The Dharmakaya is this, the being quality of existence. It's what is real experience. Does something exist if we don't experience it? How can I could answer that, but it's going to be in the prayer of the three kayas. The Sambhogakaya level. On one hand, it's the way experience expresses itself. And they talked about the five sense consciousnesses, the mind conscious, which recognizes objects. The whole world shows up. You know that the actual senses, when they take in sense data through the eyes or the ears, that's really raw, fragmentary. It's basically electrical energy, which is stimulating patterns in the brain. Okay, if you're going to, the brain hypothesis, if you're going to adopt the other hypothesis, anyway, stuff just shows up. Okay, that's the mind consciousness, the sixth consciousness. Seven of consciousness is our afflicted consciousness. That's where we take all our emotional patternings and upset, and we make a big drama. We make a story out of our life. Do you ever wonder, maybe you ought to, it's like, why me? A good way of phrasing why me is, why me? I mean, I have a name. Like, look at this big guy. Why am I here? Why aren't I one of you? Well, in a certain sense, you are. You guys all showed up in my awareness. So in a way, actually, I'm making you up. You're making me up. I'm looking at that cat. That cat is very aware of me. There's a cat over there. But the cat doesn't have the same image of me that I have of that cat. And you guys have a vision of me, and I have a vision of myself looking at you. And you have a vision of yourself. How is this happening? Okay? It's the wonder of basically the Sambhogakaya. It's the structure of consciousness. That's how we as human beings. How come it shows up this way in a room, in a house, these lights and the light? It's because of my patternings, my karma as a human being. The cats, it shows up as a completely different set of circumstances for them because they're cats. That's their karma. But they're still sentient beings with deluded consciousness. Finally, the Nirmanakaya. That's the sacred, the spiritual. Thank God we have it. Most of us in this world of we human beings, the Buddha grace is constantly acting around them, but they are not aware of it. They see as the world as, oh, you know, it's a terrible place I have to deal with, or it's a great place, or, you know, something like that. We spiritual people are slowly training ourselves to become more and more aware of the Nirmanakaya manifestations of reality, of absolute consciousness of the Guru. The Guru shows up, sometimes as a Buddha, sometimes as a beautiful picture of a divine figure that we like, sometimes as a wonderful scripture, sometimes it's just some strange circumstance that happens in life. And like, why would that happen to me right now? That's amazing. I'm getting all this stuff from it. By the way, anybody who's had that, if you haven't had it, do more spiritual practice and it will happen to you. If you do have it, doesn't happen all the time, or maybe it does for you. For me, I get in moods where lots of that stuff is happening, and I see lots of Nirmanakaya manifestations of Buddha energy around me, lots of teachings going on all the time, and lots of love and concern for me personally. Lots of loving things. The cats, for example, right now are not in my lap. That's a blessing. Spend some time with that. I still have about 15 minutes, and I'm going to try to keep it. So I'm going to finally get to, with that immense prelude, to this marvelous prayer of the three Kayas. Remember now what the three Kayas are, the Dharmakaya, Shambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. The prayer of the three Kayas, loosely it can mean absolute reality, our personal consciousness, what the Tibetans like to call the child luminosity, the manifestation of absolute consciousness in this limited form as a human being with all our patternings. That's a Shambhogakaya level, the Nirmanakaya level, all right? The presence, the activities of the sacred in the world. Absolute, relative, you know, and transcendent. The prayer of the three Kayas. I'm going to take a little sip. I've lost my water, which was here. Whatever is seen through the eyes, the outer universe and the living beings within, however they seem, remain in a state of non-grasping to them as real. In such freedom from duality, all things are seen as divine form, luminous yet empty. Invoke the Guru naturally, free of desire and detachment. I invoke Orme Pengme Jumne. Same as Padmasambhava is. Orme Pengme Jumne. Whatever sounds are heard through the ears, be they pleasant or annoying, hear them as sounds of emptiness and remain in that state without judgment. Empty sounds or the Buddha's speech, beginningless and endless. I invoke the Buddha's speech of sound and emptiness. I invoke Orgapema Jumne. Whatever thoughts stir within the mind, whichever emotion-laden thoughts of the five poisons arise, do not alter the mind by retracing the past or anticipating the future. When thoughts settle naturally into themselves, liberation into the body of ultimate truth is obtained. I invoke the Guru of intrinsically liberated awareness. I invoke Orgapene June. May grasping at what seems outer, the world, be purified. May fixation on what seems inner, the mind, be liberated. May what lies between, clear light, be self-aware. The Buddhas of the three times, through your compassion, may the minds of all beings like me be freed. I've repeated this so much that I haven't been doing it recently, but I've memorized it. And so I tend to add little words to it when I repeat my memorized version. It's excellent to memorize sadhanas, and you can do it. Excellent for you. And repeat them every day. Even if you're not conscious of reflecting upon them, just still repeat them. They cement it very deep in your samskaric mind. I'm going to read it again a little bit more fluidly. It's very hard to hear this because it's a very lovely satsang. It's a very dense things. Whatever is seen through the eyes, this outer universe and all these living beings within it, however they may seem to me, remain in that state of non-grasping to them as something real. When I'm free from this duality, everything is seen as divine forms. They're luminous, and yet they're empty. I invoke my guru naturally, but without any desire or attachments. I invoke Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, or Menpe Menchune. Now, whatever sounds are heard through the ears, whether they annoy me or they please me, hear them as sounds emptiness. And I'm going to remain in that state without judging them. These empty sounds are the speech of Buddha, enlightened consciousness. They're beginningless and they're endless. I invoke the Buddha's speech of sound and emptiness. I invoke Orgampi Nature. Whatever thoughts are stirring within my mind, whatever these emotion-laden thoughts of the five poisons arise, greed, anger, delusion, envy, and the other one, whatever it is, jealousy. Whatever all my emotion, my troubled emotions arise, don't alter the mind by retracing the past or anticipating the future. Don't make stories out of it. Just drop it. They're manifestations like dreams. They mean nothing. Well, anything that you think about in meditation means nothing. It's just thoughts. When thoughts are allowed to just settle naturally into themselves, let them go. They're just energy. Liberation into the body of ultimate truth is obtained. What is the body of ultimate truth? The Dharmakaya. They arise out of Dharmakaya. Let them go back into Dharmakaya. It's what they call the quantum foam. Just let them go. Quantum foam is the fancy physicists way of describing of the isness, out of which all these forms are constantly manifesting. The isness. Just let them go. I invoke this guru of intrinsically liberated awareness. I'm free. I invoke Orgampi Junne. May grasping to what seems outer, my coffee cup, what seems outer, the world, may that be purified of all this greed and anger and desire. May it be purified. May my fixation on what seems inner, the mind, me, may that just be liberated. There isn't a me. It's just stuff, just energy. May what lies in between, this clear light, be made self-aware. Wake up to what you really are. You're nothing but this awareness. A friend of mine told me what the clear light, what says, what lies between clear light. He said the translation of the Tibetan was Bardo, the intermediate state. Bardo means both the place you are between birth and death. When you die to this conscious dream that we are here, you go into an intermediate state, then you're reborn into another dream based on your samskara patternings. But it also means, less technically, between each thought, there's a little gap where you're simply aware of awareness itself. I'm going to spend the whole next class talking to you about what does it mean to be aware of awareness itself. It means to be free. It means to be you yourself become the Nirmanakaya Buddha. Okay. What may lies between is clear light. Luminous nature of primordial consciousness, which you can directly experience. I promise you, you can directly be there. Be self-aware. Awareness, okay? You can do this. This is actually just the goal of meditation, is just to be there. Buddhas of the three times. What are the Buddhas of the three times? Awareness of past, present, and future. Time, causality, the whole universe. Buddhas of the three times, through your compassion, may the minds of all beings like me be freed. Okay, I just love this poem. And next time I want to spend time with you. We're going to meditate, explore, work through this, and experience our minds the way both the real us are going to experience our minds. Okay? The real us experience reality. By the way, that's the same thing as perfect bodhicitta. We have no issues with anything anymore. We can love everything. Okay? Now I've got 5 minutes and I want to open it up for questions. I'm going to try, I really want to stay on time. So let me see if I can manage participants and unmute all. Okay. And discussion, comments, objections, and then
like if you, like
who's speaking now?
white people could commit crimes, well, they could still vote, but black people couldn't.
It sounds like someone's on our call.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I see, you know, boxes with 6 people, including me. Anybody, comments, questions?
I just thought it was incredibly concise. I mean, it was just, it was just wonderful. Sorry?
Who's speaking?
This is Sue.
Hi, Sue, okay.
Hi. I've been wrapping my head around the 3 kayas for a while, but your explanation, that document you sent us, and then your explanation, it was wonderful. You're such a gifted speaker. I don't know what else to say.
Mother does.
My mind is blown.
Oh, my mind's blown too. And so that is the purpose. Blow our minds. And you realize you're still here. I'm pointing this out. You can blow your conceptual mind, but you will still be there. You'll be going, what? Oh, what? But you're still here. At that moment, the Tibetans say, you are so close. They say there's 3 or 4 experiences in our life where we're basically there. We're in clear light awareness. One is birth. One is death, the experience of death. And I'm looking forward to it because I know that I'm going to, when I leave this body, I can go right there because anyway, you will too. The third one is a really strong sneeze, believe it or not, because the moment the discursive intellect, the movie stops. The movie stops. And then the movie starts up again. The fourth is a strong sexual experience. Okay, and when one of my teachers said that out loud in the class, one of the people in the class giggled a little bit, and he was just quoting scriptures. This is just what they say, you know. And I'm going to add to this one. Those are the 4 classical ones. Whenever you get scared out of your mind, this is why the ancient Hindus in their sadhanas, they would go out and they would meditate in cremation grounds. And a teacher of mine describes this funny thing that this crazy guy was in the cremation ground and scared the hell out of him. They say when you're really terrified, you're in the presence of absolute awareness and there's no discursive intellect and you're in clear light awareness. So that's also considered a sign. But I'm delighted that your mind is getting blown. This is awesome.
I have like a billion questions, but I have to, they've got to calm down a little bit. I don't even know where to start.
Ask one.
When you experience, when they say flashes of wisdom,
yes,
like sometimes, very early in the morning, I walk the dog and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I get it. But then it goes away after 30 seconds and I can't, almost like a dream. Is that the Nirmanakaya?
I don't know. I do know that when we have flashes of insight, and then it goes away again, all of us experience that. We have moments of insight. In fact, that's what the two accumulations, when they talk about merit, wisdom,
yeah,
you are busy trying to the path of accumulation, which is what you're on right now. There's also the path of realization, but the path of accumulation is acquiring merit, wisdom. Merit is you are acquiring by spiritual practices and good works and thinking about God, you are increasing your capacity to have spiritual insights. You're opening yourself up to it. You're also overcoming all your negative conditionings and negative karmas, which keep you from having spiritual insight. Let's say being angry at somebody all the time. You gradually learn how to forgive them and forgive yourself and get over it, okay? And by the way, it can take a whole lifetime. And you've been doing all this stuff. So that's going through your stuff is in the path of accumulation. Okay, that's one side. The other one is what do they call it? Merit and wisdom. You're acquiring merit by handling your stuff, all your negativity. Flashes of wisdom are walking the dog, and it's like, oh my God, it's all so simple. It's all just God. And then, you try to come home and you tell me, I had this great insight. Did you know it's all God? And they say, what? It's like, sure. Yeah, here. Have a smoke. And it's like, wait, I'm so mad I lost it, but I had it. I know I had it, but now I lost it. Just forgive yourself. It's okay. It all works together. The path of accumulation. Guru Rinpoche is operating all the time. Just say, Guru Rinpoche, or God, or Jesus, or whoever it is for you, or Tara. I call her mom all the time. Help. I have mom and dad. Dad to me is the guru. Mom is absolute reality, the Dharmakaya. And I regularly, Charlotte, my daughter down there, knows this. I'm always talking to either dad or mom. An excellent thing to do, which I'll give you a spiritual practice, is when you're driving, instead of cursing what the other people are driving, call them lover and darling. I do. It's like, oh, pull over. Go ahead, sweetheart, move. You, come on, move over, sweetie. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Just talk to them like that. You acquire merit that way. You transform anger into wisdom. They're you anyway, so who are you getting angry at? It's just your own projections, your own fantasies. Does that help? I mean,
yes,
we're all
very,
there.
very much.
We're all there. And as my guru, who's not a Buddhist, he said, the path to joy is also joy. It's fun doing spiritual practice. It really is. It's heavenly. And it takes years, but eventually you can't wait to meditate. Believe it or not, you'll get to a point where you can't wait to meditate. So this is fun. This is going to be fun. It's like taking a sauna. It's like taking a bath. It's really nice. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? We're a few minutes over.
Yeah, Jeff. So I'm just curious about, as you say, you can't wait to meditate. And
that's
ways we're always meditating in our awareness of awareness. Yes? No?
No.
All right,
we're lost in the dream state. Meditation is familiarization. You know that. The translation of meditation in Tibetan Buddhism is to become familiar. When we sit down, we become aware that of our dream state. Normally, we're lost in the dream state, and being lost in discursive awareness is not truly meditating. We're meditating in the ultimate sense. Maybe you meant this. We're all being there.
Right. That's what I meant, and I'm very much lately kind of looking for other words besides meditate to use for these practices and with others, because the definition of it or the understanding of it is this kind of putting oneself someplace else. And I do understand it is putting oneself someplace else without being caught up in this discursive awareness. And one of my question really is wanting some tips, I think, about how do you use these spaces of discursive awareness as kind of sticks to remind oneself? Any thoughts on those, or ideas or experiences, really?
One I've come across recently, which I think is very helpful, is periodically remind yourself. I'm tempted to say it the way I would describe it to myself. It says, I am.
Yeah.
The Kaya. I am Buddha, parading as a person. I am that, or that's what I am that. I am that absolute awareness. But right now I'm parading as a person. Whoever I'm talking to is Buddha.
Got it.
Yeah, you already do that, darling. I know you do. You know, you look at your patients and you say, thank you for showing up. You're such a pain in the ass. And guess what? If I wasn't already full of being a pain in the ass, I wouldn't know what a pain in the ass was. So thank you, darling, for showing up to liberate me from my own sense of being a pain in the ass. I appreciate it. And you say that. And now you've made me furious. You know, you say that. I really appreciate that because I've got that in me, and well, I want to experience everything because I'm God. So as God, I'm just going to experience. I want to experience it all because I'm here in the Nirmanakaya form, and I want to experience existence. I want to get the whole thing. Give it all to me, Mom.
Well, way to go.
Yeah, we're getting kind of weird, but that is, and it's a little late, but that's actually the enlightenment, the Doha, the enlightenment songs of Milarepa, a great Tibetan saint. He would sing songs to himself way up in the mountains in his cave. He says, I'm feeling horrible today. He says, and it's making me feel terrific.
Right.
Problems are just keep happening, and it just feels great. Now that was advanced yogi. He experienced everything as the radiant presence of the Nirmanakaya, as the Buddha itself. That's
right.
those you know, most of us, me too, you know, we get annoyed. We're driving and, you know, somebody cuts us off, or it's like, oh God, you know, I gotta, so, you know, it's all right. It is.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Anything else? And then we'll do sayonara. Anybody? You guys don't know it, but by us getting together and talking about this stuff, we are causing great benefit.
Yes.
We're giving great benefit. And what we do traditionally at the end of every service, may any kind of benefit I've achieved by sitting down with my fellow Sangha members and discussing what is the nature of reality. I am making the world and myself a better place. I freely, any merit, any benefit that I've acquired from doing this thing, I offer this up. May this help the world. May it be a benefit to others. Not for me. May it be given away. And we're taught that by giving away our merit, it's a secure investment. You know, they say if you try to keep your money and you keep it in the mattress, you know, it'll lose it, you know, 4% interest, it'll gradually wither away. Invest it. That we're told that that's a safe investment. Give away the merit. Give away the merit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, sweeties. And please, I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yes, absolutely.
Next
Hey,
week.
Marion, what time is it?
It is now, mine is 10 after 6.
No, Marion.
Oh, it's 3:09 on what day is it today? It's Tuesday, and part of what we did is we helped someone with a severe opiate addict during this last 2 hours and her partner. So thank you very much. That was the interruption I had. So beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Love you all. Bye.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.